Hey everyone, Fina here from Fina Reads. I'm a little bit excited about today's video because I'm starting a new series, which I'm calling Should You Judge a Book by Its Cover? And as you're probably familiar with that saying, what I want to focus on is book covers, and are the stories of the books as gorgeous as the book covers or not? And I came up with 3 categories, and I wanted to share a couple of books for each of the categories, starting with great cover, great book, great cover, terrible book, and the last one is terrible cover, but great book. And I have a long list already, and I didn't want to talk about like 20 books in one video, so I thought, you know what, I'm splitting this up because I always stumble about really gorgeous covers and then either love the book or not, or see a book where I'm thinking like, this cover is not great, put it aside. And in most cases, my husband then picks it up, reads the synopsis, and says, no, you should take a look at that. And sometimes they turn out really, really well. I absolutely think that a cover helps make a decision if you should buy a book or not. So I truly believe that cover design is incredibly important when it comes to buying books, especially online, when you just see the title and the cover. But even in store, right? You see the spines, you just see sometimes the covers, and there are so many, you just scan over them. And if the cover doesn't appeal to you, or if the title doesn't appeal to you, well, you move on. Today I want to share 5 books, and I'm starting with the great cover, great book section of that series. Starting with the book that got me back into reading. I have been reading all my life. And for whatever reason, after I moved to the US, like shortly after that, I didn't read as much anymore, like a book here or there, but by far not as much as I usually read, which is pretty much where I am now again. And probably like a lot of people during COVID, I started reading again. And one of the first ones that I saw at Barnes and Noble's where just the cover was staring at me and I was like, oh, I really like this look and feel, is Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. Actually, the entire series, if we're honest. And I love this simplistic design of those grayish, blue-grayish covers with just that bleeding crown on there. And if you look at the different books in the series, you see that the crowns and the imagery of that crown evolves as the story evolves. Red Queen is a YA series. It's a bit older already. I think it's actually like 4 years old, maybe something in that realm. And it's kind of a Hunger Games-like story. So you have people with red blood who tend to live in kind of rundown areas. They are poor. And then you have people with gold blood who are royalty and who have magical abilities. And then you have one person of the red-blooded ones that has a job in the palace in the middle of a big tournament, and she kind of falls into the arena. And while she's falling into the arena, we see magical abilities. That obviously gets the attention of all the gold-blooded ones because that has never happened before. And then in typical YA story, right, she meets someone, she thinks she falls in love, there's a lot of betrayal, there's someone else that she also might be in love with, and a rebellion starts, and, it goes from there. In general, I really enjoyed the series for what it was. It was a 4-book series. Some books were stronger than others. And I definitely liked it for the purpose that I used it for, the coming back into reading. I think I want to reread it again eventually. I'm not sure if I would just reread the first book or the entire series, but it definitely had its strong emotional moments. If you don't like YA, well... don't read the series. It's truly a YA series with all the love triangles and emotional stuff that they have to deal with and, ups and downs that you usually have. And the problems are rather simplistic, but I thought it was actually quite evolved from a political intrigue perspective. I definitely liked the writing of Victoria Aveyard. It was very entertaining, very engaging. So from that aspect, I really liked it. And for this particular book, yes, I actually really think that the great cover matches the great story. Book 2 that I want to talk about is a horror novel, which is Horror Store or Horror Stir, or I don't know how you want to pronounce this. But that design is phenomenal. So I don't know how they were able to make that without running into copyright issues, but it looks like an IKEA catalog. Not just from the outside and not just the front and back cover, but even in the book, there are illustrations. And advertisements for furniture and stuff like that that match the layout of an IKEA catalog. But then if you look closely, you see that it is a horror novel and it has like hidden images of creepy people somewhere, or there's blood dribbling down from something. It is so well done. I mean, that design of this book is truly unique and just amazing. Horrorstore was my first horror novel, and I made the big mistake reading that while we were camping at Thanksgiving last year. And, we were at a camping spot with our RV, and it was dark outside, and it was cold. We were all bundled up. And I read this book. Dumb, Josephine, dumb. I will never do this mistake again. So Horrorstore is about a furniture store, a furniture chain. And the employees, every morning when they come into the store, they realize, okay, something is wrong here. Things are not like they were the night before. Things are messed up. And it's just weird. So the store manager decides to pick a handful of employees and stay the night to catch those people who are doing that. Because obviously someone is breaking into the store every night and ransacking it, right? You're starting essentially with like this little bit pre-story of why they are staying in the store. And then as we're progressing, you learn more about the store employees and what's actually going on in the store. And it's wild. Oh my goodness. I'm telling you, I didn't sleep well that night when I read it. It was a super quick read. I read that in 2 days. What I loved about it was the character work. I really liked the relationship between the co-workers. I really loved that, getting the background about them, where they were coming from, the challenges that they were facing. And there was a lot of stuff discussed from outside of the store, their private life and what they were doing and how they ended up in this job and are they happy with this job and where do they want to go. So it was just really a fascinating discussion around that. And then that horror part of it, I don't want to tell too much about it because I feel it would be spoilery, but that horror part, so weird. I mean, oh no, it was so weird, but really good. Again, a book where the great cover matches the great story completely. I mean, that is definitely the best book design matching the actual story. The third book that I want to talk about in this category is Quality Land. And Quality Land was also in my top 5 books so far. Was it in the top 5 fantasy, sci-fi? I don't know, one of those. It is a book that I really loved. Let's put it that way. I loved Quality Land, and that was also a complete cover buy because it looks like a frickin' Amazon box. I mean, that's what it reminds me of. So the story is about a futuristic world where one company basically owns the majority of the world's interactions, and the prediction engine of that company knows exactly what you need. So it ships all the stuff that you need directly to you. It knows who you should date. It knows which job you should have, right? Kind of that type of setting of world. And in that world, our main character, who's kind of, you could consider him a loser, right? He doesn't have a great job and no one takes him really serious. His relationship doesn't go anywhere. And he receives a package of an adult toy for women. And it was like, I did not want that. So he's trying to return it. But because the prediction engine is so good, they knew he wanted this. So why would he return it? Like, he can't return it. He wanted it, right? Well, that's kind of all this started. And the book is essentially about the journey of him trying to return this thing. And it's hilarious. I think it is a great mix of making you think through what those prediction engines and the whole discussion that we already have today around privacy and how much of your data should companies really have access to. It has a really interesting discussion about that, but it does it in a really humoristic way, which, if you think about it, who knows if it's actually really exaggerated in, 20 years from now. Who knows where we're at that point. And again, the cover designers did a really great job on matching the cover to the story and creating something really unique. Now let's go into the next category. Great cover, terrible book, The Space Between Worlds. it just didn't work for me. I loved the cover. Again, it was a cover by. I'm a cover by person. I'm sorry. And it was when I started reading sci-fi a bit more, and I think it even just came out at the time when I bought it. So The Space Between Worlds is kind of a multiverse story. You can visit the other universes, but only if yourself is dead in the other world. So basically every character that you have in your own universe exists in all the other universes too. They do something different. They have a different job, right? Lives are different. Personal relationships are different. All those kind of things. But every person exists across all of those universes. So if you want to visit another one of these other universes, you need to make sure that you are dead in that universe. Otherwise, something weird happens with you. I forgot. It was a long time ago. So the story is about a group that is jumping from universe to universe. That's kind of their job, right? Exploring them and visiting those other universes, seeing if everything is all right and all those kind of things. And then the story continues from there. What I liked about it was that multi-universe concept, that it is a standalone book, which is, even in sci-fi, really rare. Same with fantasy. And that it had great representation. That's at least what it was marketed at. I was actually really excited for a diverse sci-fi book. The reason why I didn't like it, or why I didn't end up liking it, is that the story was not logical. Even the twist, the way they were talking about it, didn't make sense based on how they explained multiverses work. So I was just put off by things that I thought didn't make sense and couldn't work based on the explanation that we got at one point. And then they never explained why it worked. And then the character itself just didn't work for me. I could not connect with the main character. I didn't care for her. I didn't care for any of the relationships that she had. I didn't care for her plot. That was a big issue. And then the last part was, the writing was too flowery. I thought it didn't match the story. I would have loved more straightforward writing and descriptions. Rather, I felt that the author overdid it with the flowery descriptions of the book. And that's why it didn't just end up working for me. But gorgeous cover. I mean, you cannot say anything negative about this cover, I think. I think that the designer did an amazing job also showing what the book is about. Again, I think this is one of those covers that matches the story really, really well. This story just didn't do it for me. All right, last category, terrible cover, great book. And I want to start with Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. I did not want to buy this book. I saw it in the bookstore multiple times when I went to the bookstore, and that cover freaked me out. I don't know. Something with bird and face kind of meshed together did not work for me until today. I'm still thinking, nope, I cannot look for too long at this cover. It really freaks me out. But then I started hearing things on BookTube. That was also at the very beginning when I started watching more and more BookTube videos. I saw more and more reviews about it, and people were giving synopsi? I don't know. Summaries of the book. And I was like, that actually sounds really, really interesting. So Black Sun, just in case you know, it was one of the big releases of the end of last year. And it's the first book in a longer series by Rebecca Roanhorse. It's an adult fantasy inspired by Latin American folklore. And you're basically getting a story from multiple points of view, from multiple characters that are all drawn to the same event. And that's book one. The end of book one is that event and the first minutes after this event. And all of these perspectives are so different from each other because all of these characters are coming from different regions of the world. They are having all very different backgrounds. They have all grown up very differently, which makes them all incredibly unique. It is a bit tough at times to follow along with the constant POV switch, but that story was so incredible. It was definitely one of my favorite books last year. I gave it 5 stars. I cannot wait for book 2, which is coming out 2022. And I definitely do want to know how the story continues. The writing was incredible. The character work was incredible. The world building for it being a first book was really well done. There are definitely a lot of open questions that I have, and I'm so interested to see how this continues and how the characters grow and how the world actually, fits together, and learn more about all the things and all the puzzle pieces and how they fit together. But such an incredible book, and thinking that I nearly didn't buy it because of the cover makes my stomach turn, because I did not want to miss this story. It is so freaking good. All right. I'm stopping here. You know me, I can ramble on all day long, which is why I decided to cap it at 5 books. I definitely want to do more of those videos, so I hope you enjoy this type of series and me talking about, cover designs and how that matches with the actual story. And of course, I want to know about you. Have you bought, are you a book cover buyer? Tell me what your experience is. I would love to know. And tell me what are books for you for those 3 categories. Do you have something like that? Thanks so much for stopping by and joining me in my new series. I always forget to say things like, hey, like and subscribe. So do that, if you want to, of course. And then I hope I see you soon with my next video. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.